Imagine waking up and deciding whether you'd like to weigh 150 pounds, 50 pounds, or nothing at all. One quick thought, and the force that holds you to the ground simply switches off. Coffee cups float, your cat drifts toward the ceiling, and you rise from the floor like a bubble in water. What would life be like if gravity were something you could turn on or off, a personal setting, as easy to change as the brightness on a phone? At first, it would feel like a dream. People would experiment instantly. Children bouncing to the ceiling, teenagers leaping hundreds of feet into the air, athletes practicing impossible flips. The sense of freedom would be intoxicating. But the first few hours would also bring chaos. Streets would fill with drifting cars as drivers lose their footing. Grocery stores would see fruit, shelves, and customers slowly rising. Emergency rooms would treat injuries from uncontrolled flights into ceilings or power lines. Cities would scramble to issue safety guidelines. Once the novelty settled, architecture and clothing would evolve. Homes would have ceiling rails and padded walls. Public buildings would install three-dimensional traffic lanes with low G and high G corridors. Shoes might double as magnetic anchors to metal floors for people who prefer staying grounded while others drift by. Commuting would change completely. Forget elevators, people could simply switch gravity off and float up stairwells or along vertical shafts. Packages and heavy cargo could be moved effortlessly, guided by small puffs of air or gentle pushes. Meals would be an art form. Chefs would plate dishes in mid-air, sauces forming perfect orbs. But diners would have to master eating without crumbs and droplets escaping in every direction. Sports would be transformed. Basketball without gravity would become a graceful three-dimensional ballet. Soccer might look like underwater choreography. Entirely new games, zero-G racing, aerial dance competitions would explode in popularity. Construction crews could assemble skyscrapers like giant puzzles, floating materials into place without cranes. Space exploration would accelerate as astronauts train on Earth by simply opting out of gravity, perfecting maneuvers before leaving the atmosphere. Air travel would blur with personal flight. With gravity off, a person could drift upward and ride wind currents like a glider, wearing wings or small propulsion packs to steer. Long-distance journeys might combine gravity control with high-altitude jet streams, letting individuals cross continents with minimal energy. However, navigation would require strict rules. Skyways and designated altitude zones would keep free-floating travelers clear of aircraft and satellites. Weather would become a bigger factor. A sudden storm could sweep weightless people miles off course. The global economy would shift overnight. Industries built around heavy lifting, shipping, construction, mining, would be revolutionized. Energy use would plummet as moving goods no longer required engines to fight weight. But new markets would arise: gravity control technology, specialized safety equipment, air traffic management for human flyers, and secure storage systems to keep valuables from literally drifting away. The ability to turn gravity off is more than convenience, it's profound personal freedom. Borders and barriers would mean little when anyone can float over walls or across oceans. Governments would struggle to enforce traditional laws. Smuggling, espionage, and simple trespass would become nearly impossible to control. Accidents would also rise. A person who disables gravity too long could drift into the upper atmosphere, where oxygen thins and temperatures plummet. Sudden reactivation near the ground could cause deadly falls. Insurance policies and emergency rescue teams would become a central part of society. Cities might expand vertically as easily as they do horizontally. Floating neighborhoods could hover above existing ones, anchored by cables or magnetic fields. Night skies would glow with clusters of drifting homes and lights like slow-moving constellations. Art would flourish in 3 dimensions. Aerial theaters where dancers move like comets, sculptors who create hanging gardens of stone and glass. Languages might even change, with new words for upward neighbors or mid-air crossroads. Religion and philosophy would adapt too. Ancient myths of ascension and flight would gain fresh symbolism. Some might see gravity choice as a divine gift. Others might worry that effortless escape weakens our connection to the Earth. Animals would quickly learn from humans. Birds and insects might exploit weightless spaces opened by floating people and objects. Pets could drift beside their owners, while predators might gain unexpected advantages in zero-G environments. But ecosystems could also suffer. If large numbers of humans live high in the atmosphere, they'd introduce new pollutants and disturb migratory patterns. Farming might require enclosed areas to keep soil and crops from scattering into the sky. Generations born with gravity control might develop new physiques. Bones and muscles could become lighter as people spend more time weightless. Sense of balance would sharpen. Orientation in 3 dimensions would become second nature. Communities might eventually choose permanent habitats above the clouds or even migrate to orbit, never touching solid ground again. The greatest change might be psychological. Gravity shapes every metaphor we use: being grounded, falling in love, rising to the occasion. If we could switch it off, our relationship to Earth and to each other would shift profoundly. Home might feel less like a place you stand and more like a point you choose in an infinite sky. If gravity became a choice today, the first hours would be chaos, the first years a technological renaissance, and the long-term future a complete reimagining of civilization. We would no longer be a species defined by the ground beneath our feet, but by the boundless space above our heads. A humanity that finally learned to rise whenever it wished, and to fall only when it wanted to come home. Enjoyed this cosmic thought experiment? Tap subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next What If journey. Rocket comment below. Which scenario blew your mind most, and what if should we explore next? If today's trip through the universe fascinated you, share this video with a fellow space lover.